Okay, we'll call the Williams County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order for Tuesday, August 6, 2024. Brenda, will you call roll?
Barry,
Here.
Corey,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Bo, David.
Here.
We have a quorum. We will continue. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we'll start with the consent agenda. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Brenda, roll call vote?
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
is Bo there yet?
Nope.
David
Yes.
and Barry.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, we are at item D, public comments. These are general public comments. Anyone in the audience want to address the board? Okay, moving on to item E, bid openings and proposals.
For a belly dump trailers, one or more. Wesley Truck Center, 59,900. Trading in our 2018 cross countries at $26,000 each, with a difference of 33,900.
Okay, any questions?
No, I guess I think that's pretty good pricing, actually.
Sure was.
Are you thinking about doing 3 of them then, or?
Yes.
So a difference of about 100 grand total for 3?
Yeah, like 102.
Some change?
Yeah,
So you want a motion to accept the bid?
please.
Okay, I'll make that a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Brenda, roll call vote?
Bo, David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes, and Bo was there and got a yes in there. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving down to planning and zoning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Haugen with County Planning. First item we have today is LU-0038-24, Ed Rentamaki on behalf of Steve Mortensen. Yes. They're requesting a variance for a newly created lot to remain in the agricultural zoning district that does not meet the minimum required acreage. This is located in the southeast of Section 25, Township 154, Range 103, which is around Prairie Township. The township did recommend approval on this item. The applicant is requesting a minor subdivision which will create 2 lots. Parent parcel is approximately 159 acres, or the entire southeast, which is within the agricultural zoning district. The newly created lots will be approximately 125.97 acres and 34.06 acres. The larger lot will remain in the agricultural zoning district, while the applicant is requesting the variance for the smaller lot to also remain in the agricultural zoning district. Purpose of this minor subdivision is to create a lot to be sold to an individual looking to build a home. Access to the newly created lots will be continued from 147th Avenue Northwest, which is a section line road. This plat is going through the minor subdivision review process, with the lots being known as MS 24-0025 and MS 24-0026. Recordation of the plat will be contingent on the approval of the variance. On this one, the Planning and Zoning Commission did hear this item on Thursday, July 18th, and did recommend approval 7-1.
Okay, Mr. Rentamaki, any comments for the board? Okay. Any questions for Mr. Rentamaki, or what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve and follow the recommendations of planning and zoning.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
yes,
David.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so the next one we have is LU-0041-24. Ed Rentamaki on behalf of the Ergens Family Trust. They're requesting a zone change for an approximately 17-acre lot to rural residential. Subject property is currently within the agricultural zoning district. This is located in the north half of the southwest of Section 17, Township 156, Range 100, which is East Fork Township. Township on this one also did recommend approval. The applicant is requesting for a minor subdivision to create 2 lots. The parent parcel is approximately 80.39 acres and currently within the agricultural zoning district. The newly created lots will be approximately 17 acres and 63.38 acres. The larger lot will remain in the agricultural zoning district, while the applicant is requesting the zone change to rural residential for the 17-acre lot. Purpose of this minor subdivision is to create a lot with acreage to be sold to a family to build a home on. Access will be taken off a section line road that will be continued off US Highway 2. The minor subdivision is currently going through the review process, and its recordation is contingent on the approval of the zone change. The lots will be known on this one as MS 24-0028 and MS 24-0029. When the Planning and Zoning Commission heard this item on July 18th, they did recommend approval 8-0.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Rentamaki? Then what are the wishes of the board?
I'd make a motion to approve following planning and zoning recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
yes,
David,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Michelle. Okay. Lindsay, I think you're up. Item G, report of department heads, number 1.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to do the Flex Fund one first, if that's okay. Okay, so at the end of 2023, the Department of Transportation issued a grant program called the Flexible Transportation Fund, and any public entity in the state could apply for it. But the guidelines for townships is that if a township wanted to apply, the county had to apply on their behalf, which mostly just meant they put together their application and then I submitted it through the system for them. We had 2 townships who had submitted that were awarded partial awards only for design and engineering, and that was Equality Township and Missouri Ridge Township. Award notices came out in April, but it's taken a little bit to get the contracts and then also kind of figure out logistics of how this all worked. But at the end of the day, the county essentially is a pass-through then too for their reimbursement, and because of that, then the county is on the contract. Karen has reviewed this one, that's for Equality, and then it's been shared and discussed with finance as well. So essentially the township does their things, they send us their invoices for reimbursement, we send it to the state sends money, we pass it on to the township. My understanding is it's set up that way because there's already mechanisms in place for a state to pay a county and a county to pay a township. So the contract that you have is the award for Equality Township, which will be blading and graveling 62nd Street. That was picked as their award. And then I will eventually have the contract for Missouri Ridge for you, but we're still figuring some details out on that one, but it would look essentially the same for how that's orchestrated. So here to answer any questions that you may have. Otherwise, just looking for authorization for the chairman to sign both this one and then the Missouri Ridge one once it arrives upon Karen's review.
So they requested 375,000, how much did they get?
So Equality Township got 47,000 and Missouri Ridge got 50,000. And based on too what I've learned here recently, the way that they're trying to run a phased approach of the program, that projects then just got the preliminary dollars and they'll go back and apply for the construction funds for the second round of the fund. But like this essentially helps their project to be in that pipeline.
Okay, what are the wishes of the board?
I would move to approve and have chairman sign.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote?
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, then the next item is with regards to progress on the Northwest Rural Water District's water project for the Trenton Rural Expansion Area. As you are aware, over the past 2 years, the commission has been involved in providing some funding towards an initial water study down there, in addition to helping with the recent canvassing efforts to work on getting connections, which is part of the process for establishing a new water project. This would be to bring water down through the Marley Crossing area, and then potentially a little bit further west, helping residential, commercial, and the new businesses that are coming in. An open question that's always been with being able to fund this project is the fact that there's some growth that's anticipated as part of it, and full economic development funding of water projects at a state level can be a little bit of a challenge. The way that state water or rural water district projects are funded is 75% state grant and a 25% local match. Part of the last funding round where the county assisted with that canvassing effort, it was also to help put the application together to the State Water Commission for getting this project in front of them to be able to move forward, hopefully get the design and engineering done here this fall, and construction can start next year. During the pre-commission meeting, there were some questions about the sizing of the line and how that all worked. And then ultimately, the State Water Commission will review that during their meeting on Thursday. So the question at this point, prior to that Thursday meeting, is whether or not the county would be interested in providing any additional financial assistance for that local match piece. And at this point, it's expected to be around 2.4 million, based on the most recent numbers I've received. And that would be helping to bring the project to what the rural water district would see as a affordable cost per user on that project based on the current connections, and then filling in the rest of that gap that's needed for that 25% local share. So a final number, and really the whole kind of nuts and bolts of it, will not be decided until Thursday's State Water Commission meeting, but because you meet prior, the goal of today was to see if there was any interest from the commission to be able to provide any sort of assistance either way, so that they are armed with a little bit more knowledge going into Thursday's meeting. Once that decision is made, then we can continue to figure out some details.
Lindsay, do you want to touch on the 8-inch line versus the 12-inch line and how the 8-inch line meets the current need, however, would not meet any future growth?
So I've learned a lot of things in the past 2 years, and hopefully I'm not ruining this by describing it. In terms of the sizing of the line, if they were to put in an 8-inch line today, that would meet the demand of the current connections that are part of this canvassing effort. But things that don't count in that canvassing effort are, for example, a housing development that says, yes, we want water for this housing development. They count as one. They don't count as 10 or 15 or 60 or however many houses they're building, because if the dots don't exist on the map, then they don't count. And so if an 8-inch line were built today, it would be essentially too small the day it was turned on. And it would not really be able to support then any other projects coming into the Marley Crossing area, any other houses that want to be built, any other commercial entities, businesses, gas stations, whatever you name it, would not be able to be then supported by that line, which is why the 12-inch would be the ideal. However, that has its own implications. But we're also able to still, and Northwest is able to still work on getting those connections through this time. This is another scenario where this project's been on the table for 10 or 15 years. And so I think there's some folks who may feel like, well, it's just another try to be able to get it done. So, you know, is this a decision point of the project actually happening, and then being able to encourage those connections? So,
And I
8-inch
think,
line today would be essentially too small, and then 12 inch is really what's needed.
yeah, and I think Ben from Northwest Rural Water mentioned that they wouldn't even support doing an 8-inch line because they know there's going to be growth down there and it wouldn't make any sense to do it. And so they, you know, it would be irresponsible to put an 8-inch line in the ground when you know it's not going to meet the needs of any growth, which we anticipate to happen down there. So that's why the 12-inch line is the recommendation.
Okay, I just have to say this out loud. So the State Water Commission says we won't do this, even though everyone knows that it's not gonna be big enough. So they'd rather waste the money to prove the point?
Well, so the State Water Commission, their application is for the 12-inch line, and the staff recommendation that's on the agenda for Thursday's meeting is for the 12-inch line. And so it's on the local match part and how they obtain some of that financing, and the fact that it's a very high cost per user. They like to see an average of $75,000 per user. Right now, it's sitting at about $250,000. And then the way that they're looking at their cost share, they could probably meet it at about 100, and then looking for that gap to fill that part in. And then typically their local share part is they get a loan to help pay off that initially. But this is the gap piece for that. So the hope is that on Thursday, with the staff recommendation for 12-inch, that 75% grant funding that comes from the state is fully funded at that 12-inch part. If the state were to come back and say otherwise, there would have to be like a lot of other considerations.
And I think they're bound by statutory law that they don't build for economic growth. They're statutorily bound to what exists, and so that is the stumbling block here. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of growth, and
Has anybody asked the Department of Commerce for any help on it? Because they know what's going on, and they've been a big part of this whole thing.
yes.
Yeah, from the very beginning, we've been working like with Rich Garman in his office, and even through this past legislative session, they've gone to the head of the State Water Commission and being able to see if there's other mechanisms in place. I couldn't quote chapters of Century Code to you, but in general, the way that water projects are architected, they don't go for emergency services or economic development. It's supposed to be for residential use. And it becomes a really big conundrum in our growth areas of, you know, you can't have housing unless you have water, but you can't have water unless you have housing, and being able to navigate that part.
And I think there is talk of creating some kind of economic development bucket for infrastructure needs. And the trick is legislatively trying to figure out where to park that bucket, if you will. And we talk about buckets a lot, but so that is, you know, Commerce has done a great job of attracting these businesses here, but then when there's no infrastructure to serve them, that creates that second level of issues. And so there is talk. It unfortunately doesn't help us right now, but there is talk in the future of giving them the ability to leverage some economic development funds to help with infrastructure in the future. But we got to get to the next session before that can happen. But
So Lindsay, you said that the Water Commission's,
Go ahead, Dave.
Bo.
go ahead, Bo.
I guess I was just curious, do any of these numbers change if there was more users? So like, if there was potentially, if somebody bought let's say the county bought 150 taps, would that change any of these numbers?
So my understanding, based on questions that I've asked, I remember I'm very much the messenger today too. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with them, and unfortunately they weren't able to come today. They would be able to come to a future meeting, but necessarily the tap buy down doesn't really help because you're not creating a long-term user, but getting more connections signed up initially does help on that per cost. You would still, really based on the size of the project compared to the rural users, and without a giant bulk user, it would be a little bit of that, of changing that dynamic. And that's why really, technically, the application for Thursday is for this initial part, their construction part. The process for the State Water Commission is they first have to, pre-construction. The part of the process for the State Water Commission is they have to initially apply for the design and engineering dollars. They do that part, then they go back to the commission to apply for the construction part. So initially, they still have to pay that 25% local match on that pre-design part. But then if you still continue to get connections, you figure out you're bidding all of that, the construction cost can also still change. So Bo, buying more connections up front without the actual users there, or the probability of them being there, could be a little problematic for the long-term part, but we certainly would still be able to go through that process as they figure out the construction cost piece.
And I don't want to speak for you, Bo, but one thought that you'd talked about it was the idea that pastures could get a tap. I mean, ranchers could be potential multiple tap users that maybe wasn't accounted for in some of this counting. And so maybe there is an opportunity for additional growth out there that could be leveraged. And we have time to get those people signed up, right? I mean,
There's
that's the
still
big thing.
time to get others signed up. They actually just sent another round of 95 letters out, I want to say last week. There are a few users who are signed up in this canvassing effort that would have multiple taps that had come up in their canvassing part of it. But ultimately, they have to operate with the best information they have at the time, but certainly the numbers can change.
Okay, and so you're looking for a range of, if it was the will of the commission, you're looking for a range of dollars?
If you weren't even ready to do that today, because there's changes and whatnot, I think the biggest thing for Northwest going into Thursday and for WAS is whether or not the county is interested in being able to support any amount of it. And then, because if it's a no, then they need to know that too. But if you are interested, and it just will take more time to figure out the number and where the funds would come from, at least it kind of being able to talk about it as a commission and expressing that intent is the information they can carry to the State Water Commission on Thursday. Also in terms of just the certainty and support of the growth that we see that is going.
I believe the project obviously deserves the county's support, but I'm with you in that we need to figure out, number one, how much, number two, where are we going to take the funds fund? Because obviously we've got some uncertainties coming down the line in the future too. So I'm just saying that we need to be cautious on how much it is. And I mean, because it looks like to me, I guess the question would be, Lindsay, if the Water Commission approves or gives their go-ahead with this, whatever their decision is, for an 8-inch or a 12-inch line, but only funds it at an 8-inch, where does the other up to $5.2 million that the county share would be on a 12-inch line come from, I guess, is my concern.
And I think part of that too will then be whether or not the project itself remains feasible, from Northwest's standpoint too.
So, just so the commission understands my thought process on the county, when I said the county purchased some taps. So my frustration with this, I believe, is there's a good share of folks that are not signing up because of the $5,000 upfront cost and uncertainty of the project going in. So my thought was, one, does Northwest Rural Water, which I wish they were in the crowd and made time to come to this meeting today so that we could get some questions answered. But do they need that $5,000 per user for something to start the project? But my thought was, well, could the county buy, say, 200 taps? I'm just throwing a number out there in a program that says the county bought these, they're paid for so that it can be part of the design, but Northwest Rural Water can offer those for sale to folks for $500 to put your pin on the map for the design, fully knowing that once it's designed, it's built, and we're ready to turn your water on, that user has to come in and pay the other $4,500. I feel that a $500 hookup, our $500 put your pin on the design map is going to be a lot more, or is going to draw a lot more users, so that it should make the State Water Commission, feel more comfortable about this project. Any thoughts from the board?
Yeah. I think Barry agrees with you. I think it's a good, interesting idea as well. And we have a little bit of time and some flexibility because of the ambiguity of the whole process. So I think it's a really interesting approach to it.
Yeah, on the TAP incentive side, in terms of we have a lot of details to be able to figure out because of people who have also already signed up through this process. And then it's really an operational decision by Northwest to be able to do that. So I mean, again, too, if that was something that formally you wanted to suggest and go through it and figure out the details and how you'd also then handle folks who have already signed up, then that would also have to go back to the Northwest board. The also fun part of this is Northwest meets on the third Tuesday of the month, but they meet before you do. They meet at like 7 a.m. So that's why also it's a little, approval rounds and things like that from a timing perspective. But because they do already have 60 hookups that are on that line. And in both, there has been, just as you said, expression of some doubt that this would even happen. So then hopefully even just getting through Thursday and the State Water Commission providing their funding and being able to approve that project would then help bring some certainty to that connection and just that the project would be happening.
So if we could, as an example, if we made a motion supporting helping the project get done with no specific dollar amount because we really don't have one, and then by next meeting, would we have better numbers or would it be?
Yeah, because we have to get through Thursday.
Right.
So once Thursday goes and then they know what the State Water Commission approves, then they would be able to work backwards on what that looked like
Okay.
for that piece. And then we could also figure out a little bit more logistics if you want to do the TAP incentive or where funding would come from, things like that.
Okay.
And the timeline. I guess that's the other thing important to note too. The pre-construction dollars, those would be needed in the near term, but the construction costs really wouldn't be until later next year. So it's also not, if any dollar amount was approved, not all of it would have to be available tomorrow.
And if I recall correctly, the engineering numbers are 300,000 for local match or
It would be
400,000?
about $254,000.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
in
it
that
is.
pre-construction cost piece.
So yeah,
Because they're
253,
going for
167.
the grant share of pre-construction on Thursday.
So, Lindsay, I want to put this on the record, just that, and this is my personal opinion. So on the, the incentive thing that I'm proposing, I think rural water needs to look at the folks that have paid the $5,000 and say, thank you for your commitment to our project. But they also need to say, but we're trying to be creative in how to sell more taps, because I guarantee when the auto industry doesn't sell enough cars, they be creative in ways to sell more cars. So if they need more users to make this project more feasible and cost effective, then it's time to be creative to see how we can sell more taps. And I say we, it's them. So, my thought is if we can come up with an incentive program to help them sell more taps, then, it's on them to basically give us our 200 tap fee back or whatever that number is so that they can make this project go. But I think that would be a good incentive for folks in that area to know that the county's serious about helping them get this project going. But, you know, the rural water needs to be creative in how to get more taps sold. That's just my opinion.
Question, Bo, if I may, are you talking this incentive program on top of their request financially wise?
Well, I would hope that if 200 taps would be $1 million, I would hope that they could use that $1 million for part of it. So it's like if they need 2.4 from the county, if we gave them $1 million in tap fees, that would be part of that, if that's possible. But just, you know, like I say, I'm just throwing ideas out.
Yeah, I think the goal would be to drive down the county contribution by incentivizing the dots, I think is what they call them. Yeah.
Right, and there's a balance too between, we'd have to math that out, or I guess say calculate that out. Because there's also, in terms of the amount of lineage of the line with the number of rural water users, it won't completely, like, yeah, if you bought 200 taps, there really ultimately probably wouldn't be 200 real users unless, you know, depending on how fast housing developers can build housing. But they would have to balance that out in terms of how that would work towards what the actual buy down of the cost project is versus dollars they need for the local match anyway, and how that works with their tap part.
And I think the bottom line is we have a little bit of time to get creative and try to help this process along no matter what, and do it responsibly. As I think Commissioner Anderson is really inferring is to minimize the impact from the county perspective, but also incentivize the end users. And I agree, the $5,000, and you might get it this year or next year, but you might not get it for 10 years. That's you know, parting with, or ever, yeah, parting with your $5,000 is anyway, with that kind of risk is a challenge. So, and that's where they're asking for us to say, we'll help get this project done, if that's the wish of the board. So that this can be pushed over the edge and they can get through Thursday's meeting and then get some final numbers, I think is ultimately what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's, at the end of the day, it is a more costly project than a typical rural water project. And to ultimately make it happen, they need an element of gap funding. To the best of our knowledge, based on best case scenario approval on Thursday, it would be approximately $2.4 million.
And just for clarity's sake, the project in the northeast part of the county by McGregor in that area, that's approved.
Yeah, that was approved, and that's.
That one's no problem. They're just filling the need, right? But this one is a challenge, and this is the last remaining area within the county that I'm aware of that does not have real water. And it's the challenge of getting it there. That's the gap, so. Any other questions for Lindsay or thoughts or comments?
I guess anybody have a idea what the motion would sound like?
Yeah, any suggestions?
You know, honestly, unless there's other opinions, but I could even just go back to Northwest and say this was formally presented with these preliminary numbers and the concept of it. You didn't say no, and really interested in, at the end of the day, once we get through Thursday, finding out what is approved, and then being able to work backwards on what funding could be possible. I can just do that, or you can put that into a motion. Fine.
Well, I mean, I think just thrown out there, does the motion need to be that we're committed to helping finance this project in some way, shape, or form, so that it's firm to the State Water Commission that we're committed to helping? I mean, my concern is it's like we're committed to helping, but if they come back and be like, yeah, you're going to have to be in for $6 million for this to work. I mean, that's what I'm concerned about. But I mean, I think if the 2.4 is a firm number, you know, I think we'll have to figure out where, how much of that we can afford, but I mean, if they need 2.4 from the county or this doesn't work, I guess our hands are pretty much tied.
And I think if we said we're committed to supporting the local share of this project.
Well, the local share would mean their whole local share.
Yeah, not the whole
So,
local share, yeah, we
You
don't,
would say, yeah, you would be assisting with financing the local share, assisting with financing.
okay. And you
Well,
think
I would
that's,
make that,
oh, go ahead, Bo, sorry.
I would make the motion then to, be committed to assisting with the local share of this water project.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Oop, you gotta press your button, he couldn't hear you.
No cap on the local share?
Well, yeah, that's what I was kind of asking. I mean, do we put a cap at 2.5 or, I mean, that's what I'm wondering. It's like there's so much kind of unknown here.
Here's the thought, is that we still have, we're not absolutely committing. I mean, if they come back and say it's $5 million, I mean, we can still say, I guess our local shares, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why would we do this? Right? I mean, at that point,
I would say if you.
yeah.
If you-
I mean, I know.
Would
Yeah.
it be easy, would it be better to put a not to exceed on it? And in the event it comes back higher, you just reconsider what your not to exceed is? But then you're also stating your intentions initially of really what you would see your not to exceed to be?
I think that would make the most sense to have a not to exceed number at the top, just so we know, and then if we had to review it again, we can review it again, but.
Okay.
So, I guess I can amend that motion to insert not to exceed 2.5 million.
Okay,
That's agreeable.
I'm okay with that.
okay. We have the amended motion and amended second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote?
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes, motion passes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We are on to number 2, Dennis.
We're only a couple months behind, but frost laws that we took in last spring, in the past, you guys have divided that up between all the townships, if including the unorganized. Dollar amount?
You mean the revenue collected this year?
I believe that's what
Okay.
that's what they want.
We collected 405,000 this year. 1,027,183.30. I think there's 51. That's what I counted.
Because Bluff went into Dry Fork, so
Well, yeah, I thought there was
However they-
53 and then Dry Fork and annexed unorganized, right?
Yeah. I counted 51 when I looked at our load pass permits, but you could be right.
Well, are we okay with the 405 or, and we keep the balance in for, if something happens or rainy day thing or what?
I think we give out more of it, in my opinion.
We were talking earlier that we have that emergency fund that
Right.
covers the emergencies, so are we being too conservative keeping extra in, or, I mean, what's your thoughts, or what?
There's a lot of needs out there, and I think if you get the townships a little more money, I think they'll be greatly appreciating it.
Well, and my thought is just leave 200, 200,000, take 800,000 out of it. So we're basically doubling what came in and give it out so they could actually do somewhat of a project. I mean, it's still not gonna be a lot of money, but, $15,000 is better than 8. So if we could get them, I think giving them a little more is a good thing.
You want to put that in the form of a motion?
I would make a motion that we distribute the 800,000 to the prorated to the townships out of the frost law permit fund.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I've got some questions. Does it help if the counties that are unorganized the townships that are unorganized that the county oversees, that we take those out? Because it appears to me that the ones that we oversee have plenty of money in there. Just a thought, unless I'm not seeing that right.
That's an interesting idea. Go ahead, Barry.
Well, there's a couple of them that have some, pretty fair bank account, and then there's a couple that have less than an average, I would say. So I don't know how we would, get to do that, and then there's gonna be some changing going on in how we operate our unorganized ones also, so.
And we're gonna have some pretty good expenses in Hoffland and Nesson with that drilling thing coming, and we're charging forward as soon as we can with Hoffland and Nesson.
Yeah, and
Golden Valley had the water over the road for about a 6 or 8 year. We chipped away with it, and we're holding our own there. New Home, I believe we gravelled most of that this year. So, that's up to you guys.
Well, and then
There's still work to be done on all of them, I should say.
Golden Valley and New Home, there's gonna be a whole bunch of stuff going on up in that part of the country coming up with the oil field is really headed that direction, so. I guess I would be satisfied or happy enough, I guess, with just a straight, prorated out to all of them, and
Okay, you good with that, Bo?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just asking the question, so.
Yeah, good question. Okay, any additional discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote?
Barry,
yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes,
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Christie, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's time to approve the preliminary 2025 budget. Just want to remind you, we did set the hearing for September 17th, 2024 at 8 a.m. in this room. Do you have any questions on the budget packet I sent out? I made all the changes we made at our meetings. A couple small ones by some other departments. Didn't raise the budget, we lowered the budget in non-levied funds. Remember, once you approve this budget, it goes out to the calculations and it goes on the tax statements that'll be mailed out August 31st.
Perfect. Any questions or comments for Christie?
If you notice, I kept the tax levies 2025 is actually $1 less than 2024. So it kept it
Gotta
pretty.
love it.
I quit chasing pennies.
Yeah. This is excellent work from your team and all the staff. Very much appreciated, Christie, the hard work that goes into this every year.
Thank you. There's a lot of help with the budget. All departments
Yeah.
chip in and do their job, and they're very thoughtful, and it's appreciated.
Outstanding. Any other questions or comments for Christie? If not, what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 preliminary budget as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Brenda, roll call vote.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Christie.
I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Mike Smith had an emergency cleanup. I think he talked to Corey about it. 300 gallons of motor oil was dumped on a road surrounded by wetlands. We're requesting 80,000 from the emergency fund to clean it up.
Makes sense.
He did talk to me about it, so if you got any questions, I might be able to answer them for you. It sounds like they just decided to go, that was the place to dump it, and, totes. Well, nobody knows, Barry, but there was used motor oil laying on the road, going right towards the wetlands, and he got on the phone and got, the right equipment out there to clean it up. You know, a big chunk of that is hydrovac and disposal, to get things sucked up and cleaned up, but it's, you know, it's too bad that it happened. I'm glad that it got reported, so we don't have to worry about it, and, you know, I told him, you gotta do it, and they did look. There was some talk, he had talked to the township that it was in, and I don't feel it's right that the township should get stuck with that bill. I think that's something we need to take care of for emergency management, because, I mean, a township could go broke, and then that's what that fund is for, I guess.
What is what's the statute for illegal dumping like that? I mean, can somebody get in a lot of trouble for that? And if not, can we make it a lot of trouble for somebody?
I think if they get caught, they get in all kinds of trouble, but the problem is catching.
Catching them.
You know, you don't, yeah, I mean, if somebody saw it happen, that's one thing, but it seems like nobody, you know, and it could have been something as simple as it fell off a trailer, but still, if it happens, you need to call the right people and get the ball rolling to get it cleaned up, because it is what it is.
Maybe we offer a reward for anybody to get turned in.
Hang
Anyway,
hang
hard
up
to
at the
prove it.
post office.
Yeah, exactly.
I would make a motion that we approve the funds to take care of the situation.
Of the 80? Or just,
I mean,
Whatever it takes.
we need to pay for it, and as long as there's bills to back it up, I would say it, I mean, I guess if it comes in at $1 million, you might want to bring it back to us.
oh, I would.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah. Any discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote.
Steve,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christie. Okay. Item H for Helen.
Did you see that I sent out an updated position report via email yesterday, I think? Yep, yesterday. I'll read off the list for you. I was gone a chunk of last week, so I had created this report before I left, and then I came back and there were changes. So here are the positions that we're seeking approval to fill. There's 7 of them. 2 911 telecommunicators, a staff accountant in the finance department, a maintenance technician in the facilities department, 2 sheriff's deputies, and what we are now calling an adolescent care attendant. So I think I might have jinxed us because at maybe the last meeting or the meeting before,
There
think
was
I
0.
said,
Yeah.
there's 0. That's right, exactly. Our average stays the same, but so seeking permission to fill all of these positions, people are moving away. I think it's that time of year where if you're going to go, you're going to go now before school starts and the snow starts to fly. So
Who are
we've
we
got,
losing in the finance department?
we have Krista has taken a job in the private sector.
Oh. Well, that's too bad. Okay, what are the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve the 7 requests.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote?
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes, motion passes.
Great, thank you. And then on the flip side of the form, county planning and zoning, seat number 2 held by Dan Kalile has been open, available to the public. We did not receive any additional applications, but Mr. Kalile has indicated he's interested in serving again. And so we'd ask that you reappoint him. The term would be 8/1/24 to 7/31/28.
Okay, what are the wishes of the board?
I would make that a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Brenda, roll call vote?
Barry,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes,
Bo,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
motion passes.
I would just point out for your interest and/or public knowledge that the District 3 Planning and Zoning seat, so in Planning and Zoning, there are commissioners serving by seats, and then there's some at-large. District 3 is Corey Hansen's district. That person will not be seeking reappointment in part because he no longer lives in the district and so actually isn't eligible for reappointment. So if you know someone who would be interested in serving on planning and zoning and lives in District 3, now is their opportunity because we do have that seat open and our incumbent will not be able to refill it.
When does it get appointed?
End of September. So it's open on the website right now for anyone who would want to show their interest. All right, that's all I have for you unless you have any questions for me.
Oh, thank you, Helen.
Yep, thank you.
And with that, we will adjourn.